AI is changing the way we work. So just think about like the gamut of what your role in HR encompasses, knowing if AI is such a big part of the strategy, you want to have that seat at the table. As I think about technology and I think about the conversations, yes, it's aligning with your business strategies and the goals, but it's also, if you are looking at new tech, a huge part of that conversation needs to be about integration. When I think of HR and I think about them being a strategic partner, that means that they need to have that seat at the table with any sort of big transformation, a change to the talent strategy or business strategy.
AI is reshaping how we work, and HR should be at the forefront of the transformation. In today's episode, I'm joined by Kristin McDonald, a seasoned HR tech strategist who spent her career helping companies think bigger and act smarter when it comes to their people technology. She's seen it all: point solutions, all-in-one platforms, multi-year Workday implementations, and now AI. She's a firm believer that HR should be at the center of AI strategy, and in our conversation, Kristin breaks down why HR must lead in AI literacy and capability, how to build an AI roadmap that's grounded in business outcomes, what it takes to roll out new tech that doesn't break trust with employees, and how to evaluate vendors, integrations, and risks in a world where everyone claims to be AI powered. If your leadership team is asking you how AI fits into your strategy, or if you're wondering how HR can show up with answers, then listen to Kristin's advice. Let's get into it. Kristin, is there anything else that you would like the audience to know about you?
Well, that's a great intro. I would say I'm an HR tech nerd at heart, and it's been most of my career. I don't want to say how many years. I don't want to put that out there, but it's been most of my career working in HR technology. I love it. It's a passion of mine and one of my favorite topics to talk about. And I love following everything that's happening in that space, and it just keeps getting wilder and wilder. It's a fun ride.
What have you seen? What are the biggest trends and differences that you've seen lately?
Well, of course, AI, that's one of them.
We'll talk about AI.
I mean, yeah, I don't think you can go through a conversation with technology without talking about AI, but I think trends are just, things continue to evolve as usual. And it's nothing new either, right? As long as I've been in HR technology and following this space, there is always trends, always things that, whether it's talent acquisition is the big trend of the tech season, or whether it's employee experience, there just ebbs and flows. And there's so many vendors out there, like as technology does evolve, that it's a lot to keep up with. So I think the trend is just the fact that it's almost overwhelming now at this point, and how do you, with the AI conversation, how does that weave into your current tech stack? Because that kind of changes the equation a little bit. Like, does their current tech stack have those capabilities? Is it on their roadmap? Do you need to build versus buy? So I think that is very much opening the door for a lot of questions and a lot of people just not knowing kind of where does this go? And then how does it affect your roadmap?
Well, let's start there. So the landscape is shifting. I mean, one of the hard things about tech in general, like I spent a lot of time buying MarTech, and it's like, what do you actually buy as there's a ton of tools coming in, and how do you get tech that actually solves business problems rather than seeing how cool the technology is and trying to fit a business problem? So really, it's how do you purchase tech into your tech stack that's strategic to where your actual tech roadmap is going?
Yeah, it's hard. It's like, do you want the latest shiny new thing? Because there's a lot of cool tech out there.
Yeah.
But and it used to be where people would have these conversations that would include, you have tech stack just for this space, TA, or just for a compensation, right? And then that evolved to consolidation and these bigger ERPs like Workday and SAP that now allow for you to have all of those capabilities within the system. So people started letting go of other tech stacks so that they have just a few. So as I think about technology and I think about the conversations, yes, it's aligning with your business strategies and the goals, but it's also, if you are looking at new tech, a huge part of that conversation needs to be about integration. You don't want to just look at a new tech without it being able to integrate with current tech and have it be a seamless experience. Because at the end of the day, we have to remember, especially in HR technology, our end users, our employees, our managers, and they need something that's easy to use and it's not jumping from one system to the next. So, and quite often, if you are saying, okay, I have this business need, maybe talk to your current vendor if you feel like it's not addressing that need. Maybe it's on their roadmap. Maybe it's something you don't even know that they can do, or, it's really having that conversation and being thoughtful about it. Because also, we know budgets are tight. So I think asking for new tech is also a hard part of the conversation.
Yeah, especially right now. I mean, before we jumped on here, we were talking about just tech purchases in the macro environment. And I mean, I don't think anybody can escape what's out there, but that's not what we're here
Mhm.
for.
Right.
So you talked about integrations and choosing tech that integrates well. Like, if you're thinking about adding a tool, like, what are the 3 questions you should be asking, or 5 questions? Or like, what are the key questions you should be asking before you do that, before you add a tool?
Before definitely and you're saying more so along like internally, like the questions you need to talk about internally first, or
Correct.
as you're talking, okay, yeah. So the sometimes I see this a lot too, where people, whether that be business partners, people in business units, HR COEs, like, hey, I want to do XYZ. We're going to go out and we're going to look at tools that can solve this problem for us. And it's very easy for them to just say, "Ah, we want to go talk externally," but there needs to be a conversation internally where people, more than, you don't want to just fight for one segment either. So I think that's the other thing is who is being impacted, who actually receives the ROI of this tool.
Yeah.
And because you don't want to just a lot of that conversation, because things can happen, especially in HR business partners, for instance, they support a client group and they'll have a very specific need. And they think that their need isn't a need that other business units have. So they think when they have technology needs that it's just their own need, when that may not be accurate, right? Like another business unit, all employees could benefit from it. So coming back to the table and being, we have a business unit that has this need, but let's talk about it. Could other employees be like employees or managers, could they utilize this? Would this help us in some way? Do we already have this capability, or do we maybe not have something turned on, right? Because that could also be the fact that, technology comes with a lot of functionality. Maybe things aren't turned on because at the time it wasn't found as a need. So it's really just having that internal conversation. What is the goal? What's the outcome? We don't want it to be just necessarily one population that we're looking at that has this need, or it could potentially be scalable and needed by more. And then if there is a gap, let's do that analysis and see if the ROI is worth going out to purchase new tech or look into new tech. It may not, the ROI may not be there. Like maybe you can get to 80% of the gap, or maybe not 100% of the gap between what maybe a new tool could do versus your current tool. And then the other thing is it's, even if you want to go look at the new tool, make sure you're seeing where there is the integration, because I still think that's very key. Like even if you purchase a new tool, you don't want it to be a fragmented experience for the employees that you're trying to actually probably make things easier for, you know? And then of course, you just always want to make sure like there is a true measurable outcome, like ROI, that's impactful enough that it makes it worth it.
Yeah, and on the integration side, it's almost I've had experience where there was an out of the box integration, but it wasn't very robust. So we ended up having later, unbeknownst to us, had to do a custom integration anyways. And then it's like, oh
Mhm.
gosh, wish we would have known that.
Yeah.
So that's like such a
Yes.
key.
Well, that's why you bring your HR, your IT friends along for the ride. They need to be part of the conversation.
Yeah. And they'll know exactly what
Hmm.
what needs to happen, and they're gonna have a whole set of
Yes.
questions, and you just hope if this is your preferred vendor, they know how to operate through that environment, because
Hmm.
they'll get all the tough questions asked.
Yes. Yes. And that they, I'm not that technical as true technical people. They know, like, they know the terms. They know what to ask for. They know what they need. So, They're
Yeah,
definitely a big part of the conversation.
exactly. I want to go back to something you had mentioned around point solutions and then going into all-in solutions, and how, we see these ebbs and flows, I think, in tech in general, where everybody's going to point solutions and then you consolidate it into all-in-ones. Do you have a preference for when you would go for a point solution versus all-in-one solutions?
I think it really comes down to it really addresses a huge need or
Mhm.
like a business problem. Otherwise, most of the bigger systems these days have enough of what people need for their processes. Whether that starts with talent acquisition and onboarding all the way through talent development and performance and like, the whole employee life cycle. Like it's very hard pressed these days to find something that or a tool that doesn't have those capabilities that are bigger. But
Mhm.
to be fair, that also is expensive. So there's going to be smaller companies that can't afford those bigger like Workday to SAPs potentially. So maybe they have to have smaller tools or points. So it just depends, right? I mean, it's possible. It allows for everything to be in one place. Data is on one place. It's easier to grab what you need, like to with your data warehouses, or if you're feeding data elsewhere, you're not getting it from different places. Like I can't tell you like back in the day when you had to create like a map of where all the data is coming from and to go and check your data warehouse. And it'd be like all these different systems of where the data is and like talent acquisition data is here. So I have to grab requisition data to pull in here. My worker data is here. Now with the bigger solutions or no, and there's even smaller solutions now that have most capabilities that you need within HR. Your data is all in one place. Your processes are in one place. Things there does not work in silos as far as processes. Like what you're doing in talent acquisition, there's impacts to your talent management. Like it's very hard these days to find processes that don't impact other areas.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I have drawn those maps of where all of the data flows,
Yeah,
and it is insane
messy.
to try and map it. But I mean, I think the point here for the audience, or a point, I shouldn't say the point, is just like as you're thinking about having to communicate to the rest of the business and your technology, like it's a complicated thing to do, and you have to be pretty thoughtful about it. So let's say you've brought in, I want to transition a little bit to so you've brought tech in and now you have to roll it out, get it implemented, get it used, and make it effective. And kind of want to see what traps or pitfalls do you often see I mean, let's call it once the contract is signed and then, you start implementing new software.
There's a couple of things, and I think this is true regardless if it's implementation at full blown of new tech or just if you're bringing or changing processes within your current tech. One, you got to know what your processes are. You can't go in and say, I want to implement this and just kind of like leave it open ended. Yes, the system will have its own capabilities, but you need to understand what your processes are in general, right? A lot of businesses do not have their processes documented and mapped. They don't even know what they are. And then where do you make sure that you're not leaving any gaps, right? That when you're going through your implementation and you're thinking about your processes that you're developing, that you are being considerate of everything that you need to. It's a lot of work. If you were to take everything you built for your global workforce, for instance, of different things that are, different countries have different compliance or different segments have different processes that they follow. It's a lot, right? So it needs to be a very thoughtful and thorough implementation to make sure you have everything figured out and know everything that needs to be configured. And while you're doing that, involve your internal teams. The big one, and I saw this in implementations, especially with like Workday, when you are not making sure you one have a team that's going to support the system post go live, and two, you're not training them alongside, like you should see your implementation as training for your teams. And they should be there right alongside with your implementation team, those consultants, working alongside with them, seeing how systems are being configured, like all of the back ends. So they know once the system gets handed over to them, they know how to not only maintain it, but also optimize it. And that they can know enough about what happened during implementation that when you go live, and this will happen no matter what, things aren't going to be 100%. Things will not be 100% working. Hopefully you tested everything. You need very thorough testing, but sometimes things happen. You need to be able to answer those questions. Like, why isn't this working? You can't be sitting there going, I don't know what they did during implementation. I don't know how they configured it. That's just, you're not going to get adoption. People are going to be like, I don't know if I trust you. I don't know if I trust the system, because they're not going to see it as a you problem. They're going to think it's like a tech problem potentially.
Always. It
Yeah.
always comes down to the tech problem,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
that can be frustrating.
Yes.
When you go live and you have bugs that you have to work out, and you always do. I worked for a company, and the CEO we would release product releases, and he'd be like, well, you just hit release and then duck under the table and hope that it doesn't go
Cross your
too
fingers.
bad. And I just
Yeah.
always thought that was such a funny line. Um,
Yeah. It's hard. Everybody's so busy during implementation. Of course, have their own day jobs, but when you roll out a new tech, it has to be something that you feel confident that your teams can support post go live. And technology is always evolving. It's not how maybe it used to be when you didn't have ongoing releases, that you need to know about the system so that you can know, like, this is where this release impacts this, or this is what I need to do to configure. There's constant releases, constant updates. Technology is changing so fast. You have to know the system inside and out so that you can handle those.
and do you recommend that the support lives within like an IT function, or do you have a support function for a tool within HR?
That question has come up again lately. Like, where should like
Oh,
HR tech
really?
sit? Yes. And
Okay.
there's been some companies that have started to put all tech under one organization, whether it's finance tech, HR tech, whether you travel and expense, they're all sitting under like one, like the chief tech officer or something. But I I still think there's more pros and needs for if it's a technology that is paid for by HR, it's managed by HR, is supporting HR processes, even though the employee is the end user. I think that support should sit under HR and there should be a dedicated team. There needs to be people that understand the system. They need to have strong partnerships with process owners, with their stakeholders in HR, and that comes much more easily if you are on in the same organization. You roll up to the same leader. You're hearing what's going on in the within HR, but also the business, and you're supporting a technology that you need to have strong partnerships and understanding of what the needs are. And it's just much easier when you're sitting in that organization. I think that supports all that.
Yeah, interesting. I've heard a few times now the companies moving everything under one area for tech, and I
Mhm.
don't know. I mean, interesting. You know, it- some of that stuff really just depends on the org, right? Like the org setup,
Yeah.
and you can't always have one size fits all. But I would agree with you. Like I know from the marketing tech side, like it's somebody in marketing has to know like what's going on, like somebody in the department using it or what the actual thing is doing has to know what's going on. Otherwise it ultimately then becomes difficult for execs to then figure out what's happening and make business decisions, I think, as well. So you have to have
Yeah.
some way to manage that up all the way.
And it's about, you understand the terminology,
Yeah.
you understand the processes. So it's much easier for translation, right? And being in
Yeah.
HR technology, sometimes it can feel like you're talking a different language when you're talking to like your HR COEs or execs, and they're like, what do you mean when you say configuration or sandbox or business process or something that's more, text? So you have to remember that translation sometimes, but it's much easier when you can translate it in a way that they understand because you're talking about like their world. You're talking to a talent acquisition person and you're talking in their terms. It's a much easier conversation. However, with that being said, I can see why there's merit to putting everything under technology because you don't want people like buying tech and not having a larger enterprise strategy around tech and making smart tech decisions, right? And with AI, that's probably changing the conversation also because when you think about utilizing AI in the organization, you say you want like a knowledge agent or an employee agent where it can answer all my questions. That's not just HR. That's
Yeah.
you're getting information from your travel and expense system or maybe your service now where you have questions. Like it could be just run the gamut of what information they're looking for. And an employee is not going to see it as like talking just to HR. They just are trying to get their questions answered. So you can understand why if you're looking at something more enterprise wide, you probably need it to all be kind of centralized in some aspect.
That's a really good point on the like an AI agent. And if you want to roll something out for HR, really you have to think about the employee experience because they don't want to go to 3 different AI agents. They don't want to go to an Ask HR agent, an Ask Product
Mm.
agent, and then an Ask Marketing agent. They want to go to the company's agent, ask, and then get the answer they need from everywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's a really good call out and a really good segue to talk about probably the most interesting topic that we're going to talk about today, and that's AI. Probably not just in HR tech, but in general. And I guess in what we know now for this year, it's been when I started really dabbling in it in like January to now, it's like entirely different of what's happening for AI and HR. Like, what are you seeing and thinking about that's like actual usable stuff now versus, just people talking about it, like writing posts on LinkedIn?
Conversation constantly changing and getting more complicated
Yeah.
by the day, it feels. And I see it sometimes as twofold. The way we have to think about it in HR, because I think we forget that HR should be leaders when it comes to these kinds of like transformational changes, right? But in order for HR to pave that path or lead that path, they have to be AI literate. Like they have to have that capability. And I don't know if we see enough, hear enough about that capability being built and that investment being made by companies on the people that probably need it at least first, right? If I think about what that means, I think you want employees to embrace that AI. You want employees to utilize AI, but you need your leadership, your manager, your talent, your people that are leading talent and creating talent strategy to be as well versed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if they can't understand it, they can't advocate for it, they can't teach it, they can't help with adoption. So I think that's a really huge part is that capability building of HR professionals and AI. And then it's about, all right, we know that it's chaotic out there regarding CEOs. They're like, go do something with AI. We're behind the curve. They're like, oh, like they feel like we're not doing enough to be like have an AI roadmap or using AI. Well, it's not like a one size fits all,
Yeah.
it's what would make the most sense should look at what are our processes today, where can we automate, where do we have gaps or places where it could have a really big impact based on our business. Other businesses they might be doing something but that's maybe because it makes sense for them and it will have that impact. And so it's not just you push a button and AI happens. I think that's the
Yeah.
thing, like do people is that just I think that's a misconception of what it takes before you can even make a decision on a tool.
Well, and if you think about we've lived in being able to build business process workflows for, with the kind of, I guess you can call it the SaaS revolution of the last 15 years. And how many
hmm
businesses don't do that because of how difficult it is to do automated workflows and how hard it is for businesses to do it. And then
hmm
to flip a switch on AI, like it's going to be as difficult, I would imagine. And if you see somebody posting all the great stuff they're doing with AI, it could just be that they created a slide with a workflow on it. It's not really happening the way that they've said. You never really know. But
Yeah, that's true.
I wanted to touch on something you said. You detailed a little bit of it, but it's like, so why do you think that HR should lead in this AI knowledge and bringing AI into organizations? I haven't heard that before, and I'm just curious.
When I think of HR and I think about them being a strategic partner, that means that they need to have that seat at the table with any sort of big transformation, a change to the talent strategy or business strategy, right? Because people are such a big portion of any of those changes, any of those strategies. And AI touches everybody in every strategy, right? So not only is it how you're using AI, as an employee in your day to day, or if you work for a company that's creating AI tools or looking to build or buy, you also are, if you are looking at your talent strategy, what AI skills do we need to have? But then you as an HR user also will need to use AI as well. So just think about like the gamut of what your role in HR encompasses, knowing if AI is such a big part of the strategy, you want to have that seat at the table. You need to be seen as a true partner in creating that strategy, whether it's helping identify, do we have the skills that we need within the organization to be able to take your roadmap, your strategy with AI forward. But in order to do any of this, you need to understand it. I think it's just this basic literacy, because I think if you don't understand how it works, how are you supposed to lead anything?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that the really interesting thing that is out of this, that's not just HR folks, but business execs and anybody should be thinking about, is that AI is going to impact your people. Like
hmm
especially in office-based work, it's absolutely going to have an impact, whether they're using it or any of that. And so HR should be in those conversations. I guess I have two follow-up questions to this. The first is, let's start with, like, how do you think HR folks should become more AI literate? Like what things can they go do outside of, I'm just going to say maybe this is the best place to start, but outside of ChatGPT or something like that. I mean, obviously that's a good place to be, but what advice do you have?
That's a hard one because it's like any of us, right? How are any of
Yeah.
us learning AI? So much of it's experimentation, trying things out. There's a ton of courses out there, free or whatnot. I do think with AI, it's basic literacy of what it means when you talk about Gen AI versus agents versus, and then like the, underpinning that LLMs, natural language processing, just general knowledge that needs to have like as a foundation. And then going out and experimenting. Yes, ChatGPT is a great way. If you have Microsoft Copilot, really start utilizing that, understand how it works. Like, how does it get incorporated into your day to day? Because the other thing I think that is important about this is that AI is changing the way we work. Like, don't even think about it like in your role where it can help with automating some tasks or helping you, but you can go into Outlook, for instance, if you have Copilot, and you can say, summarize my emails. Where am I mentioned? I have an action item. Like, there's so many things that just help you in your like day to day that is important as part of this. And you sometimes just have to play around. Sometimes I think there's a lot of validity to just having a community, which is a little harder right now. I think HR community of AI is a harder one. There's people out there that are doing it. They're trying to lead the charge, but I think that's where there could be so much more value, because we need to learn together. It's just new for so many of us, and you just kind of need to learn together and share what's working, what's not. What did you try that you had a lessons learned from in building that community, I think would be really helpful.
Yeah, that the community aspect's good, and I like the call out that we're all just learning together, and learning is hard. Learning is very,
Hmm.
very difficult. So you don't want
Hmm.
to downplay that
Mm.
at all. The second follow up question I wanted to ask was, so we talked about HR needing to have a seat at the table with execs if, people in the organization are saying we need to use AI. Like, how does HR make that case to alert people that if we're going to start going down this really, big road of we really want to get, deep into AI, like, how do they communicate that, hey, we need to think about people, HR needs to be in there? Like, how do you make that case? Or
To be at the table.
what advice do you have for people to make that case to ensure that you have representation at the table?
People talk about AI, and it's not just a tool, right? And it
Yeah.
kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. And I think HR has a really good viewpoint about all of the change management aspect of this, right? That maybe other leaders aren't thinking of necessarily, where HR has this like bird's eye view, and especially being their role being focused on talent strategy, but also business, right? They have part of their purview is also to make sure that they're doing work, that they're, create a talent strategy that aligns with the business strategy. And I think that they have a unique perspective of everything that's needed as part of this change management, whether it's the people, the skills, right? Think how much they know about what that looks like, whether it's from an external market perspective or what you have internally. They know what can we do to understand that and what that looks like. They can talk about learning, right? If we want to look at upskilling people and get in with basic AI literacy, here's a strategy. If we know that we want to figure out like AI use cases because we want to have that conversation about where it even makes sense, that is based on probably people's roles. Again, HR knows what it like with org design and looking at roles. There's just so many touch points that they understand the change management aspect of it. And then of course, adoption and communication and everything that will come with this from end to end. So if you're not getting that seat at the table, put that information together. Put together, these are the things we need to consider to bring to the table, and the reasons why. And I always say this, what's the worst that can happen? They say no. At least you brought the perspective to the table and shared that, and maybe you have some recommendations. I always think that's something that's really impactful. Is it's not just sharing information. We need to do this. Like, actually give actions. In order to do this, we'll need to go do this, or we do not have the skills. Maybe even do that skills analysis of, let's go out and find out what employees are, you know, have used AI, know about it. If we know we want to do XYZ, we can do that skills inventory, and we can share that as a data point to be like, we do not have the skills. That means we need to either upskill or go look externally.
Yeah, and you're talking the skills or AI skills across the org in general or just within HR?
No, in general.
Yeah,
When
that's
you know, the skills conversation has been around for a long time too, also, right?
yeah.
So there's also been a lot of work done to capture worker skills and also the demand, so like both the supply and the demand of what's available in the organization. If you need to do an additional kind of survey or whatever your process is internally to capture any updates, that now's the time to do that. Did people just recently take some AI courses? Have they played around with AI? Is it a goal? Like, look at their development goals. Has anybody put in a development goal about AI and share progress? Like, there's other ways you can get to that, but I think that's an important part of the conversation, and that HR has access to, or at least be able
Yeah.
to create a strategy to get access to.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And going back, like, everybody is learning. So even if you have people that are on the forefront of AI, they're still learning. So it's not going to take that long for everybody else to catch up because it hasn't been, you haven't been doing it for that long.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like the point about putting together courses or helping empower other employees to learn AI and doing that as a good strategic initiative because, as you said, like
Mm-hmm.
HR's got the purview of this and knows, and that's one way to kind of help be on the forefront of that. And a lot of our audience works for private equity backed companies. And I'm pretty sure a lot of the private equity backed companies are being asked how to use more of AI. And so this is a very good, very tactical way for HR to get involved in that, knowing that they are going to be asked in that environment, in those high stakes environments. Okay, one last question on AI. I feel like we should have spent the entire time on this now after we got through this because there's so much more, but AI roadmap. So you're deep in the thick of doing AI roadmaps. Like, what should people think about step by step in adding AI into their tech roadmap, their HR tech roadmap?
I th- I think it's about doing your due diligence first. Remember the old adage, even when like people analytics was like the big trend, like garbage in, garbage out. It's the same thing with
Yes.
AI. If you have bad data, if you don't have the information that is going to feed these agents or these bots or anything, then you're going to just, one, you're not going to get the ROI you're looking for, and employees are not going to trust the the AI, right? Because it's it's not, there's no good data to begin with to use them. So I think it's looking at your data, and that can include things like going back to the knowledge agent or where employees are going to ask questions. Do you have your policies documented? If employees want to go ask questions about their vacation policy or time, like maternity leave or what the travel expense policy is, do you have those? Do you have those documented? Where are they stored? Are they easily accessible that employees, like the assistant or whatever you're building, can access them and then employees can get that information? So you need to do a lot of like background work and infrastructure work to even know if you're ready based on, what you want to do with AI. And the other component is you can't throw AI at everything either, right? Like that doesn't make sense. You want it to like augment your people. Where can you help them the most? Where are the real opportunities where things can be automated to allow people to be more strategic, right? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to even understand what that could look like. What are people's roles? What does their day to day look like? What are they doing in their role? Where can we have a lot of impact? And I think that is going to be a very long roadmap. So I think when you think of that work, what can you do now maybe that will be an impact or value add, right? Is there, the bigger use cases right now would be like within talent acquisition, right? Like candidates being matched to roles. Like there's just things that just are probably easier to just do. So maybe focus on a couple of those while you're doing this other work of other ways you want to incorporate AI. And then the fun conversation that is very hot but not hot, no one wants to talk about it, is like governance. Like
Oh, yeah.
how are you making sure it's ethical? What are your processes that you're putting in place? Your vendor's going to have processes, but you need to also have them internally. And that's going to be a lot of work too. It's almost it's the long game, but there's also things that you could probably do now that have impact. They're just easy, probably because maybe your vendor has them already, right? There's a lot of AI that's available now and a lot of the technology that people have. So what can you turn on now to, get people more familiar with utilizing AI, see how it works while you're looking at other use cases or opportunities within your organization?
Yeah, I mean, governance is a big thing because, like, you can't just have everybody having rogue, consumer style ChatGPTs and uploading
Mm-hmm.
company trade secrets to get help with stuff. And they're probably doing it unbeknownst, like it's not anything other than I'm trying to get stuff, but making sure that you
Yeah.
have tools for them to be able to do that in safe environments like Copilot, I think is why everybody uses that. It
Hmm.
then has the security and the data privacy that you need.
Right. Right.
So that's
Which
a good thing to
it's
think
a very
about.
important conversation. I think that's why the build versus buy conversation is also a big one, because when you build, you can control a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
It's you're not as I don't want to say you're at risk, but you are at risk when you buy, right?
Hmm.
You have to make sure you're doing your due diligence with the vendor to make sure you know what their processes are, how they're auditing, all that work has to be done so you can understand that, because I mean, we know there's already lawsuits out there of like
Yeah.
how AI is working.
Yeah. I had a tech person that I worked with years ago, and he had a sticker, and this was kind of like in the heat of cloud debate. It was like
Mm.
circa 2015, and people were still debating cloud, and the sticker just said on his computer, the cloud is just somebody else's computer. So like, think about it, you're just uploading onto,
Hmm.
and obviously there's companies take really good parameters to make sure that it's not that, but you know,
Yeah,
in the
it's
context.
true, and there's also so much uncertainty right now, and that trust hasn't been, I don't want to say developed, but the trust isn't there yet. That's
Yeah.
going to take some time, and so
Yeah. Well, this AI section, I think there is a ton of great stuff for everybody listening, especially if your leadership team is asking, how can we bring more AI into the organization, not even just in the HR function, and how you can be a strategic partner at that table. Kristin, is there anything else you would like to leave the audience with today? Any other parting advice?
just have grace, and we're all learning together. Like, don't feel like you're behind, or if you're just playing around, or if you're doing something, like we're all in this together, which is both a good thing and a bad thing maybe. But also, like, we're going to learn so much, and I don't think there's any sort of, if you're here but other people are here, that doesn't mean anything. I think that at some point we're all going to catch up,
Yeah.
it's but I do think it's, don't not do anything. I think that's the worst thing you could do. I think if you're just experimenting, if you're just trying to learn, that sometimes that's a leg up right there with AI.
Yeah. That's a great advice, Kristin. And I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today and talk through tech and AI and how everybody is learning together and should be learning together.
Yes.
And last thing is, where would you like the audience to connect with you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. I would say that's probably the best place to connect with me. And I'm always looking to connect and learn from each other. I'm learning just along everybody else. So find me
Great.
there.
Awesome. Well, we will link that in the show notes. And I want to thank everybody for sticking around and listening today. Thank you.
Thanks, Logan.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Pulse, the podcast that has real conversations with HR leaders linking people to performance. HRBench is the people analytics platform that turns HR data into business strategy. It connects to all your tools, HRIS, ATS, payroll, surveys, whatever you're using. In just a few clicks, you get over 45 metrics instantly visualized in boardroom-ready dashboards, benchmarked by industry and company size. Book a demo at hrbench.com and we'll build you a custom benchmark report using your data.